Chapter 1. A normal dinner, a missing key. Rain braided down the balcony glass in thin, glowing lines. The apartment was warm and golden, lamplight pooling on the dining table where steam rose off a bowl of garlic butter pasta. The TV was muted, a cricket match flickered like distant lightning. Forks clicked, napkins rustled. It felt like any Thursday. Ethan twirled spaghetti, grinning at Ryan across the table. "You still skipping leg day?" Ryan smirked. "I carry other people's drama upstairs for cardio." He glanced at Laura and winked. "Consider it community service." Laura smiled back because that's what you do in a comfortable life. Offer the easy expression first. The kitchen smelled of basil and rain. She rose to top off the salad, pausing as a cool draft slid under the bedroom door. The hallway key rack hung by the kitchen entry, a little wooden house with 5 brass hooks. 4 keys dangled and chimed softly when the AC kicked on. The spare, the long, matte one with a blue bead, was missing. Laura's eyes lingered a fraction too long. The sound in her head thinned to a wire. From the table, Ethan was telling a story about a stubborn contractor. Ryan laughed like the punchline was already true. She shook it off. Plates clinked. She carried a fresh bowl out, setting it beside Ethan's favorite blue mug, a mug he insisted made coffee taste rounder. A ghostly lipstick crescent haloed the rim. She stopped. Not her color. Not her shape. The curve was too sharp, almost like a stamp. "More wine?" Ethan asked, catching her halfway between kitchen and table. "Just water." She wiped the rim with the heel of her palm, casual, as if smudges were a personality trait of ceramic. When she lifted her hand, a trace of the ring still glimmered in the lamplight. She rotated the mug and hid it behind the peppermill. "Pasta's perfect," Ryan said, voice easy. He leaned back. The chair creaked. His jacket draped over the backrest sagged open. In the pocket, a small ring of metal sighed against fabric. One muted note, there and gone. His thumb grazed the pocket without looking, a muscle memory smoothing something flat. Laura poured water and felt the weight of each routine, how they stack, how they hide. The rain deepened. Somewhere a neighbor's door thudded shut. Sophie coughed once in her sleep down the hall, a small sound that said she was real and safe and dreaming. "Client meeting at the Riverside tomorrow," Ethan said, spearing a cherry tomato. "Early. I might crash at the office tonight to prep." Laura looked at him. His voice was all middle notes, no sharp edges. She tried to remember if he'd mentioned that earlier. The key rack sat in the edge of her vision like a mouth with a tooth knocked out. "Stay here," Ryan said lightly. "We'll keep it down." Ethan chuckled. "Since when do you keep anything down?" Laura's fork scraped porcelain. "You could prep at home. Printer works." "Some files are at the firm," he said, already moving past it, already offering another topic. "Did you talk to Nadia about that hotel thing?" Laura nodded, a reflex. "They want a bigger sponsor wall." "Bigger is always better," Ryan said, and made a face at his own joke. He reached for the salad, sleeve riding up to reveal a small, pale scar at the wrist, new, like something he'd caught on a lock. He saw her notice and turned his hand palm down. The match on TV cut to an extreme close-up of a batsman blinking under a helmet brim. Laura felt the camera in her own life do the same, eyes, breath, tiny movements. She got up to clear plates, her chair legs whispering across the rug. In the kitchen, under the closer, colder light, the blue mug's lipstick ring looked bolder. She rinsed it, watching the water bead and run. The stain blurred but didn't vanish, a faint pink smile refusing to drown. She set the mug upside down to drip, then wiped her hands on a towel that smelled faintly of lemon. From here, the key rack was a perfect profile against the hall. For keys. A 5th absence ringing louder than any chime. "Laura." Ethan's voice warmed the doorway. He leaned on the frame, casual. "You okay?" She turned, smile practiced and soft. "Just thinking about tomorrow's install." Ryan appeared over Ethan's shoulder, scooping the last garlic knot. "You worry too much. That's why things don't fall apart," she said, lighter than she felt. Ethan stacked plates to help. He brushed her arm in passing. The touch was gentle, familiar, but his eyes flicked, quickly, almost unconsciously, toward the key rack. Minor, almost nothing. She saw it anyway. When Ryan reached for his jacket, the pocket gave one more hush of metal. He threaded his arms in, rolling his shoulders. "I'll Uber," he said. "Storm's a mess." "Stay if you want," Ethan offered. "Nah." Ryan's grin was easy, practiced. "Leg day tomorrow." They laughed. All of them. A generous, ordinary sound. Laura walked them to the door. The hallway smelled like damp carpet and someone else's shampoo. Ryan stepped into the elevator, lifting 2 fingers in a salute as the doors slid shut. Ethan turned back to her, smile dimmer now that no one else was watching. "Don't wait up," he said. She nodded. The door closed. The deadbolt slid home with a heavy, trustworthy thunk. She stood very still in the soft, humming quiet of her own life. The fridge motor kicked on. Rain scribbled at the windows. In the kitchen, a blue mug breathed a faint pink ring it had no right to carry. Her gaze drifted back to the key rack, and this time she didn't look away. For keys. One missing. Something tiny had left the house tonight, and it had taken a door with it. Chapter 2: Lipstick on a Blue Mug. Laura stayed by the key rack until the rain thinned to a whisper. The apartment settled around her, pipes sighing, a neighbor's laugh fading down the stairwell, the refrigerator's steady breath. 4 keys gleamed, one absence glared back. She pressed her finger to the empty brass hook like she could feel a pulse there. Nothing. She washed the dishes because the body needs a task when the mind is sprinting. Under the kitchen light, the blue mug weighted upside down, a dot of water quivering on its base. She turned it over. The faint ring, pink and obstinate, had bled but not disappeared. She raised it level with her eyes, as if the ceramic could answer questions that people wouldn't. Behind her, the guest room door clicked. Ethan crossed to the sink in socks, wordless, dropping his plate into the suds. His shoulder brushed hers. "Don't stay up," he murmured. Not a command, an old habit pretending to be care. He went back down the hall. The mattress springs in the guest room gave a tired little note. Silence drained in behind him. Laura dried the mug and set it back on the counter, rim turned away. She locked the door, then unlocked it, then locked it again, once for Sophie, once for herself. In the bedroom, she lay on her side, face to the window. A taxi's headlights slid a pale bar across the ceiling like a metronome counting down to something inevitable. She woke to the gray blue of almost morning. The rain had left the city glassy and clean. The world looked honest when it wasn't. From the hall, she heard Ethan moving, measured sounds. Zipper, closet hinge, the dull thud of a duffel set on the bench. The smell of his deodorant threaded the air, familiar as the shape of their bed. Laura walked out barefoot. "You're really going now?" "Client emergency." He didn't look up from lacing his shoes. "Riverside. Files are at the office." Then the site. She watched his mouth form the lie in a kindly tone. "Printer here still works," she said, just to throw a pebble and listen for depth. "Some things I can't pull remote," he said, tying a neat knot. He straightened. An unreadable moment. "I'll be back late." Sophie padded out, hair wild, dragging a stuffed rabbit. "Water," she muttered, not fully awake. Ethan poured, crouched, kissed her head. That tenderness, a reflex he didn't have to perform, threatened to puncture Laura's resolve. She held tight to the colder thing, the empty hook. Ethan took his duffel. Laura stepped close, brushing a thread off the strap. "You'll text?" "Of course." His eyes flicked once toward the key rack, then away, so quickly a person could blink and miss it. The door opened on a draft that smelled like wet concrete. He left. The latch caught with a firm, reasonable click. The apartment exhaled. Laura stood still long enough to hear her heartbeat settle into the silence. Then she moved. From the junk drawer, batteries, rubber bands, the pencil that always worked, she took the coin-size tracker she'd bought and never used. She paired it to her phone, a soft, confirmational chime, bright and traitorous in the quiet. She carried it to the entry bench where Ethan kept his gym bag, the one he pretended was only for dumbbells and clothes. He often forgot one strap unzipped. Today, luck or habit made it true. Laura slipped the tracker under the lining with 2 fingers, heart knocking, then closed the tooth of the zipper with a steady hand. In the kitchen, she picked up the blue mug again, because some rituals are anchors. The ring winked under the new light. She set the mug beside the empty hook, like placing witnesses together. Her phone vibrated. "Ryan, you okay? Don't spiral. Call me." She typed later and didn't send it. She erased the word. She let the message sit like an uncut wire. On the table lay the hotel receipt she'd found in Ethan's wallet. She flipped it over. The back was blank except for a faint imprint where a number had been scrawled hard enough to dent the paper. She shaded it with the side of a pencil, old-school detective, for a second. A room number rose in charcoal, 1206. Her phone chimed again, this time a different tone, the new one. A dot lit up on the map, then slid across the city like a bead of mercury. First the firm. Then another hop. Laura grabbed her coat, keys jangling, 4 of them, heavy and honest, and paused at the door. Sophie from the hallway, small and hoarse. "Mom." Laura went to her, kneeling so their faces were level. "Go back to sleep, Bunny," she whispered, smoothing hair off a warm forehead. "I'll bring croissants." Sophie nodded, already falling, trusting because children must. Laura waited until the bedroom door clicked shut, waited until she could hear the soft ocean of her daughter's breath. She stood, wiped her palms on her jeans, and checked the map again. The dot had stopped. Riverside Lofts. The letters sat on the screen like a verdict. She looked once more at the key rack as if it might confess. The empty hook kept its small, polished silence. Then Laura turned the deadbolt, stepped into the cool hallway air, and took the elevator down, following a signal that had decided to stop pretending. Chapter 3: The Woman in Red Heels. The Riverside Lofts rose like a stack of wet mirrors above the river, glass beating with the last of the storm. Laura parked across the street, wipers ticking a nervous metronome. On her phone, the tiny dot pulsed steady. Here. She could feel her pulse answer it. Inside, the lobby felt like a boutique gallery, poured concrete floors, a wall of ferns, a quiet that made every shoe sound like a confession. A receptionist looked up. Laura smoothed her hair, found the practiced smile hotels teach. "Laura Ward, Riverside Catering," she said, voice soft, professional. "Site walkthrough for an intimate launch?" The receptionist's eyes dropped to a clipboard, then to Laura's coat, shoes, nothing that screamed lie. "Visitor sticker," she said, sliding a rectangle across the counter. The sticker was warm from someone else's palm. It read 12 in black marker. Laura pressed it to her lapel like a borrowed identity. Elevator doors sighed open. A man in scrubs stared at his phone and never saw her. The ride up hummed with electricity and possibility. Laura watched numbers bloom. 9, 10, 11, then 12. The doors parted on a wide, clean hallway faintly smelling of citrus cleaner and new drywall. Her phone map tightened its circle to the corridor's middle. A muffled laugh floated from around the corner. Ethan's timbre softened. Laura moved toward it, heel to toe, breath shallow. She stopped at the corner and let the scene play like a stolen film. Ethan stood beneath a track light, sleeves rolled, the careful weight of his body familiar even from behind. Beside him, a woman in a cream blouse and red heels leaned a hip against the wall, a folder tucked under one arm. The heels weren't loud. They spoke, each step a precise punctuation. The woman said something low. Ethan's mouth curved, not the grin he used on clients, something smaller, fond. Laura's throat went dry. She shifted her weight, keeping out of the sight line, watching them through the slim wedge of space the corner offered. The woman's hand rested on Ethan's sleeve a fraction too long. He didn't remove it. A fluorescent hum undercut the air like a bad feeling. They moved to a door halfway down, 1206 stenciled discreetly beside the frame. The number dented into the back of the receipt in her purse. Laura's stomach dropped as if the elevator had restarted. Ethan keyed in a code. The lock clicked. The woman's red heel tapped twice. Enter. They went inside. Laura counted to 8. The hallway held its breath. She stepped to the door and put her ear against cool wood. Murmurs. Paper sliding. A muted chuckle. She tested the handle with the gentle curiosity of a thief. It turned. The door eased open an inch. A metal latch had failed to catch, someone hadn't let it fall. She slipped in sideways, closing it to a finger width behind her. The loft was staged like an architectural magazine spread, white walls, matte black fixtures, a living room with a soft gray sectional and a rug the color of fog. Rain light pooled in pale rectangles on the floor. On the island, rolled floor plans, a laser measure, a neat row of pens. The smell hit her, his cologne, sharpened by the room's cool. From the deeper end, she heard their voices, closer to the bedroom. Laura moved on the balls of her feet, every step placed like a stitch. Her phone camera slid into her palm by muscle memory. Click. Silenced, she snapped the island with the papers, a scarf flung over a bar stool in a shade of wine she didn't own, 2 toothbrushes in a tumbler by the sink, 1 charcoal, 1 coral. She zoomed Ethan's brand of toothpaste beside them, the cap half unscrewed the way he always left it. "Permits will jam us if we don't submit by Monday," the woman said from the hall, calm, amused. The red heels ticked like a clock. "You're the one who wanted an expedited retrofit, remember?" "Because I thought," Ethan's voice. He stopped. She could hear the smile. "Never mind." Laura snapped another photo, a navy duffel in the bedroom doorway, same model as his gym bag. Her chest tightened. She stepped closer to frame the logo, her reflection caught in the black TV screen on the wall, a ghost in her own picture. She flinched and moved back. Footsteps angled toward the kitchen. Laura's brain, in survival mode, mapped distances, 3 strides to the island, 2 to the hallway, 4 to the door. She slid behind the pantry door just as the woman came in, the red heel tapping gently once on the tile. Through the crack, Laura saw her up close, early 30s, posture clean and unafraid, hair tucked low and neat. She wasn't overdressed, she was exact. She set a folder on the island, uncapped a pen with her teeth, and jotted notes on a blueprint without looking down at her shoes. Ethan stepped in a beat later, scanning a printed schedule. "This unit's clean," the woman said. "Soundproofing is decent. If the hospital wing bites, we can demo here as a sample. Keep the board calm." "Hospital wing? Demo?" The words skittered against Laura's certainty and didn't stick. She inhaled too sharply. The pantry wood answered with a tiny, treacherous creak. The woman's head turned smoothly, predator still. Silence spread into the edges of the room like ink. Ethan frowned at the wall, then looked down the hall. "You hear something?" Laura held her breath until her chest burned. Her phone vibrated. "Ryan." The sound was a mosquito under glass, almost nothing. Almost. The woman set the pen down, moved toward the pantry in 3 measured steps. Laura pressed herself flatter against shelving, shoulder blades protesting. The door shifted half an inch as if the air had changed its mind. "Probably the vent," the woman said after a beat, glancing at the ceiling. She didn't open the door. She reached past it to the sink, ran water, rinsed an invisible line of dust from her fingers. "You're jumpy, Ward." Ethan gave a breath that was almost a laugh. "I've got reasons." Laura could see the side of his face now, tired under the eyes, mouth pulled tight in a way she'd learned to dismiss as work. He passed so close that she could smell his shirt, the starch she'd switched brands for and he'd never noticed. He poured water, drank. His throat moved with the swallow. He looked toward the living room and for a second, his gaze brushed the TV, her reflection gone now, only black. Her phone buzzed again, another Ryan, and she clenched her fist until the blood left it. The woman was talking again, cool, competent. "If you want the board, you have to play the board. No more improvising. No more last-minute heroics." Ethan leaned against the counter and, for the first time, looked like a man carrying something heavy. "I'm done with heroics." Laura slid along the pantry edge until she could see the door again. For steps. The hallway was empty. Air moved like a warning. She exhaled slowly, counted down from 4, and, when both of them bent over a set of plans and their heads were turned, eased the door the last inch, stepped out, and ghosted for the exit. Her hand touched the knob. The metal was cold, verdict solid. Turned and froze. On the floor outside, a sliver of light showed a shadow. Someone had paused in the corridor, feet angled toward 1206. A key turned in the lock from the other side. Laura let the door kiss the jamb without sound, heart knocking so loud it blurred the room. Inside, the red heels went still. Ethan's voice dropped to a line of breath. The knob in her palm began to move back. Chapter 4. Ryan's advice sounds like permission. The knob in her palm eased backward, the latch tongue whispering in its metal throat. Laura flattened into the hinge side, breath folded into her ribs. The door pushed in, slow and certain. A sliver of corridor light widened, then a hand appeared, broad, with a delivery scar across the knuckle, guiding a dolly's nose over the threshold. Samples, a man said, voice low. Boxes bumped softly. Behind him, a red recording dot blinked on a ceiling dome in the hall, CCTV, the patient kind. From the kitchen, the woman in red heels didn't look surprised. Over there, she said, tapping the island with her pen. Her tone was managerial, unflustered. Ethan stepped out of Laura's sightline, paper rustling. Careful with the corners, he added, reflexively kind. Laura rode the shadow of the open door as if it were a moving shield. When the delivery man's back blocked the room, she slid the last inch to the jamb, turned sideways, and slipped into the hallway's cool air. The door feathered shut against the latch with a kiss, not a sound. She kept walking, measured, as if she belonged to the floor, eyes forward, palms damp. Behind her, a heel tapped twice. The page turned. No one called after her. The elevator arrived with a bell that sounded too bright. Inside, she watched herself in the brushed steel, hair neat, mouth pale. The doors closed on 12:06 and the cameras read, sealing the moment into something the building kept. Outside, the rain had rinsed the world raw. She reached her car, set both hands on the steering wheel, and let the tremor move through her like a past storm. Her phone chimed, the tracker that shifted a few meters and held. She started the engine and drove without thinking about turns. At a red light, her phone lit up with Ryan's name. She answered on speaker. I saw her, she said, voice flat. Red heels. The loft. His cologne. 2 toothbrushes. A scarf. Ryan's reply was immediate, controlled. Where are you? Riverside. Come to the studio. Now. The gym smelled like eucalyptus and clean rubber, in air that tried too hard to be fresh. Ryan's office door clicked behind her, shutting out the thud of bass and the thwack of ropes. He took one look at her and pulled her into the chair opposite, palms braced on his desk like he was holding the room steady. Breathe, he said. Tell me everything. She did, in shortcuts. The unlocked door, the plans on the island, the woman's voice, the toothbrush cup. As she spoke, Ryan's jaw flexed once, twice. His eyes stayed on her, pupils thin with focus. He reached for a legal pad and began to draw boxes and arrows like he'd been waiting to map it. Okay, he said, tapping the pen on the paper. Listen to me. This is where people ruin their cases. They go in screaming, get manipulated, and come out the bad guy. We don't do that. We collect. We document. We make it undeniable. Case. The word tasted foreign. You want your life back? He asked. You want to be believed? Then we play like adults. He slid the pad across, bullet points in fast block letters, timestamps, photos, receipts, witnesses. He circled CCTV twice. Every floor has cameras. If he's stupid enough to use that place regularly, the building knows. A thin thread of rage and relief braided in her chest. I have the hotel receipt, she said, pulling it from her bag, the charcoal impress 12:06 visible when the light hit right. Ryan's mouth tilted. Perfect. He opened a drawer, took out a fresh phone with no case. Burner, he said. We use this for anything touchy. Don't put your name on it. Don't text him from it. This is for collecting, not venting. His hand lingered when he passed it, warm on her fingers a beat too long. I've got you. Laura pulled her hand back and looked away, heat climbing her throat. Through the window, a client did walking lunges with a barbell, each step a quiet thunder. What if he flips it? She asked. She's not like a mess. She's practiced, Ryan finished. Which means it's not their first time. He leaned in, voice dropping. Do not confront in a hallway or a kitchen. You pick the ground. Neutral. Legal. You stand him in front of evidence he can't charm. He tapped the pad. We book a room at his favorite hotel. We put eyes where he thinks he's safest. We stay quiet until it counts. She stared at the pad. The columns looked like planed wood, smooth and straight. I hate this, she said, honest. I know, he said, and the way he said it wrapped around her too warmly. He reached to tuck a stray hair behind her ear and stopped halfway, catching himself, making the pullback look like a stretch. His sleeve slid, and the pale wrist scar from dinner flashed again, small, fresh, like a key bite. He rolled the cuff down. What happened? She asked, nodding at it. Boxing bag hook, he said too quickly. He lifted his hands as if to prove there were no secrets there. Focus. He booked the hotel with practiced fingers, the same place the receipt was stamped from Ethan's wallet. Conference level, he said to the phone. Corner suite. Sound carries better in corners. He hung up and jotted the time. Tonight. Tonight. Her stomach dipped. Waiting is how you talk yourself out of the truth, he said. You'll bring your pictures. I'll bring a mic. We'll follow his, and when he thinks he's meeting her, we'll be the ones opening the door. He stood, came around the desk. For a moment he hovered there in her space, close enough to smell clean sweat and mint. Laura, he said, softer than strategy, you're not crazy. Something inside her wanted badly to believe that sentence, to live in the room where it was true. She nodded once, hard. Okay. They stepped back into the gym's hum, into a hallway of mirrors that made their shapes into multiples. As they passed a storage closet, the metal latch scraped with a sound so exactly like the lofts that it scraped along her spine. Ryan saw her flinch. We'll be smart, he said, hand hovering at the small of her back without touching. We'll be careful. Outside, the city had the rinsed, dangerous shine of a street after rain. Laura checked her phone. The tracker at Riverside had gone still, then drifted toward the river's bend, then paused again as if choosing. She thought of the red recording dot in the hallway dome and how it blinked without feeling, how it remembered what people wanted to forget. Tonight, Ryan repeated, opening the door like a promise. We make it undeniable. The door closed behind them with a neat commercial click, the kind that sounds like truth even when it isn't. Chapter 5. But too clean. Night came down like a blue filter. Laura and Ryan moved through it with purpose, the city's wet neon smearing across the windshield as he drove. The burner phone glowed in Laura's palm, one dot creeping across the map, then settling. Harborview Hotel. Floor 12. Her breath shortened, then spread thin. We stay controlled, Ryan said, steering into the underground lot. No shouting. You let him talk himself into a corner. They rode up in a mirrored elevator that multiplied their faces into a corridor of versions. Fearful, determined, doubtful. On 12, the doors opened to carpet that smelled of citrus cleaner and money. A soft ding from a hallway camera logged their arrival, indifferent. They turned a corner and stopped. A housekeeping cart sat parked by 1206, door ajar an honest inch. The same number that graphite had coaxed from the back of a receipt, the same number stamped into a different door in a different building. The coincidence felt like fate rehearsing. Ryan's hand hovered above the handle. Ready? Laura nodded because her body knew the gesture. Inside, male and female voices, low. Paper sliding. No music. No clink of glass. Ryan mouthed 3, 2, and pushed. The door swung open on cool light and a conference table dragged into a suite. A roll of blueprints unfurled like a wave. Laptops. Permits clipped under metal jaws. 2 paper cups of black coffee, untouched. Ethan stood at the far end in his rolled sleeves, a pencil behind his ear, surprise washing up and receding in one blink. Beside him, the woman in red heels, cream blouse, hair pinned clean, looked up and then past them, eyes catching the security lens tucked into the ceiling like she was noting a fire exit. Her heel tapped once, twice, steady. Laura, Ethan said, voice level. Ryan. His gaze flicked to the burner in Laura's hand and back without sticking. What are you doing here? What are you doing here? Ryan shot back, stepping into the room like a claim. Conference suite? Late night? With, he gestured, her. The woman set a metal ruler down and capped her pen with precise fingers. "Working," she said. No apology, just fact. Her tone was the same as in the loft, managerial, unflustered. "Ward, we can reschedule if you need privacy." Laura's eyes raked the table for a towel, lipstick, a scarf, a wineglass with breath on it. She found floor plans labeled Central Medical Retrofit, Airflow Rebalancing, Infection Control Upgrade. A laser measure. A binder tabbed with codes/seismic. The mundane weight of professional nouns made her feel ridiculous and furious at once. "You told me the office," Laura said, swallowing splinters. "You told me you'd be at the firm." Ethan met her eyes, tired. "Files were here." Ryan stepped closer, the line of his body widening. "You hiding something on company time, buddy?" The woman let a breath out through her nose, amusement small and sharp. "I'm Vanessa," she said, like a bouncer who knew the guest list. "Consultant. If you have accusations, make them and let us both get back to work." Laura's mouth opened and then didn't. The room felt like a trick camera. Every angle correct, every prop a counterargument. She pictured the toothbrushes at the loft, Ethan's cologne in the air, the red heel tapping like a metronome on her panic. She turned toward the bedroom door, closed, immaculate. No clothes on a chair. No unmade bed. The suite was aggressively sober. Ryan wasn't having it. He reached into his jacket and laid a small voice recorder on the table with the ceremony of a chess move. "Say your name again," he told Vanessa. "Spell it for the record." She smiled without showing teeth. "You don't get to decide who records whom," she said. Her eyes flicked to the corner, and only then did Laura notice the hotel's dome camera's quiet red bead. Evidence didn't care who owned it. Ethan's pencil lifted from his ear. He twirled it once, a tell she'd married. "Laura," he said, softer. "Let's not do theater." "You made theater," she snapped, heat finally cutting through the numb. She lifted the charcoal-rubbed receipt and slapped it onto the plans. 1206 rose like an accusation. "You made this," she repeated, as if the number could be a verdict. Vanessa nudged the receipt with a knuckle, unflustered. "It's the conference level," she said. "Same as last week. The board doesn't sign off unless they can see mocked-up airflow. Numbers repeat in big buildings." "Shocking, I know." The burn landed because it was true. Laura's cheeks heated. She forced her gaze into Vanessa's. "Do you always meet at hotels at night?" "Construction doesn't care about your day planner," Vanessa said. "Permits have clocks. So do pathogens." Ethan closed a folder and set both palms on it, as if feeling its thickness. "You're scared," he said, not unkindly. "You think I'm lying to you. I don't know how to fix that in a doorway with Ryan filming." Ryan's jaw bunched. "I'm protecting her." "Are you?" Ethan asked, something unshowy and cutting in the question. Silence dilated. The AC whispered through a vent. The laser measure beeped a tiny, oblivious chirp. Out in the hall, a room service cart rolled past with the hush of good wheels. Laura grabbed the recorder back because she needed to do something that felt like agency. "We'll talk later," she threw over her shoulder, and the sentence came out like surrender wrapped in threat. Vanessa's heel ticked twice more, a metronome finishing a bar. "Please do," she said. "Maybe in a place with less carpet and more neutral parties." Ryan bristled, but Laura was already moving, the room going fisheye at the edges. She heard Ethan say her name once, low, and decided not to turn because she didn't trust what would come out of her face. In the hallway, the door swung shut with a soft seal. The quiet there was different, cooler, empty of what she needed and full of what she feared. Ryan caught her elbow. "Don't let them get in your head," he said quickly. "They staged it. The plans, the coffee. It's a set." "It looked real," she said, hating that the honesty sounded like weakness. "Then we make ours more real," he said, walking fast, pulling her with momentum. "Mediation. Tomorrow. No more hotel heroics. We put everything on paper and watch him squirm." In the elevator, their reflections skimmed past again, thinner now. Laura stared at the numbers ticking down and saw the tiny red beads everywhere. Hallway, elevator, lobby, cold eyes that remembered for people who forgot. She imagined rewinding the night, watching herself burst into a room that refused to misbehave for her narrative. Ryan squeezed her shoulder, close. "Trust me," he said. She nodded because falling apart in a hallway felt too public. Outside, the rain had stopped. The city shone like nothing bad ever stuck to it. Back in the car, the map dot kept pulsing in 12:06. Laura put her phone face down and looked at her hands on her knees. They were steady now, too steady, as if the tremor had simply moved deeper. "Tomorrow," Ryan said, starting the engine. "We end it." Laura watched the hotel's lit windows recede in the side mirror, each square its own little clean story. Her mouth shaped a word she didn't say. When they turned onto her street, home lights came into view, the warm square of her living room, the soft glow down Sophie's hall. It should have felt like returning. Instead, as the car settled to idle and the dashboard clock clicked to another minute, she felt something inside her make a quiet, irreversible decision. "Tomorrow," she echoed, voice flat as glass. "We end it." Chapter 6, The Split. They pulled up to the curb in a hush of wet tires. The building's entry light flickered once, like an eye reconsidering. Ryan killed the engine and looked over, jaw set. "He staged it," he said, decisive. "Tomorrow, mediation. We force daylight." Laura nodded and stepped out into air that still tasted of rain. Upstairs, their door opened on a familiar warmth, the lemon cleaner, Sophie's lavender shampoo sleeping down the hall. Everything looked exactly like a life. Nothing felt like one. Ethan was in the living room, sleeves rolled, a laptop open to a spreadsheet. He rose when he saw her, face guarded but not hostile. "You went to Harborview," he said quietly. It wasn't a question. "You weren't at the office," Laura answered, hanging her coat with care she didn't feel. Ryan came in behind her and let the door shut with a gentle, territorial click. Ethan's gaze slid to him, then back. "Can we not do this at midnight?" "No," Laura said. The word surprised her with its steadiness. "I want a separation." For a heartbeat, only the refrigerator answered, a low compressor sigh. Then Ethan nodded once, like a man accepting weather. He closed the laptop. "Okay." Ryan's chin lifted, pleased by the lack of struggle. Laura felt something petty in herself wait for a plea that didn't come. "I'll take the guest room," Ethan said. He moved past them, careful not to brush. "We'll keep it calm for Sophie." Laura's eyes flicked to the key rack. The empty hook caught the lamplight like a polished lie. "Where's the spare?" Ethan's mouth tightened. "At the office." "I'll bring it tomorrow." "Tonight," Ryan cut in. "Bring it now." Ethan looked at him like at a dog he didn't own. "Tonight I'm not waking a sleeping child to argue in doorways." He picked up a folded blanket, his movements ordinary, almost tender. "I'll text you a mediation time. 9 would be best." Laura almost laughed. "You already had one in mind?" Ethan didn't answer. He disappeared down the hall. The guest room door closed with the soft finality of good hinges. Her phone buzzed. "Ryan, he's cornered. We finish this tomorrow." Then another, "Don't respond." Discipline. Ryan was already at the kitchen island, unfolding a legal pad like a flag, talking about exhibits and timelines. His voice came from far away. A knock sounded, 2 firm raps, neighborly. Laura flinched. Ryan went still. She opened the door to Detective Adnan from across the hall, in weekend clothes and the same calm he wore on duty. Rain dotted his jacket shoulders like Morse. "Sorry for the hour," he said, voice low. "You asked me last week what cameras cover Riverside. I made a call." He held up a phone with a drive dangling from a short cord. "You didn't get this from me." Laura's pulse tripped. "Come in." They huddled by the couch, light turned down. Adnan thumbed a video open, a fixed hallway shot, date stamped from that afternoon. 12th floor. Unit 1206. The camera's view was clinical, patient. At 2:11 p.m., Laura saw herself, coat tight, face set, slide a key in and enter. She watched that version of her disappear, stomach dropping at the proof of something she hadn't fully admitted to herself. At 2:39 p.m., Ryan appeared on screen, cap low, a hand to the side of the frame as if to hide from a lens he didn't know about. He checked the hall, then slipped in the same door. Could be nothing, Adnan said, neutral. Could be everything. Either way, time matters. Ryan's jaw worked. Don't play cop in our living room, he muttered. Adnan didn't look at him. Mediation means paper. Paper means timestamps. Don't burn your own house down. He unplugged the drive. You never saw me. He left with the same 2 quiet raps on the jamb, like leaving a gift and a warning. The apartment went still again. Ryan rounded on Laura, talking fast. He'll twist it. You went in first, looks like you planted. We get ahead. She wasn't listening. She was seeing her own shoulders on a cheap camera, the determined line of her mouth, the door yielding like it had been waiting for her. A heat crawled up her neck, shame and anger braided tight. Her phone chimed, a text from Ethan, mediation. 9 a.m. Keep it civil for Sophie. A calendar invite followed, efficient, unassailable. Ryan reached for the drive on the table. I'll copy this. No, Laura said. She took the phone Adnan had handed her with the paused frame of Ryan in the corridor. Her thumb hovered. Then, like a reflex protecting a wound, she hit delete. The clip vanished into the smooth certainty of an empty screen. What are you doing? Ryan hissed. Protecting myself, she said, and the sentence didn't ring true even to her. She set the phone down and stared at the black TV, catching the faint reflection of a woman she did not like. Down the hall, the guest room door opened on a sliver of softer light. Ethan crossed to Sophie's room, soundless. Laura held herself still until he returned and paused at the hallway's edge, a silhouette torn out of the dark. I put her nightlight on, he said. She woke a little. Laura nodded, unable to unspool the lump in her throat enough to make a word. Ethan looked at Ryan one beat, then at the key rack, then at Laura. 9, he repeated, and vanished into the guest room. Ryan started listing steps again. What to print, what to bring, who to call, but the sound blurred into the room's hum. Laura drifted toward Sophie's doorway and took in the small rise and fall, the glow painting animals on the wall. Sophie's drawing from school, crayoned living room, hung crooked on the corkboard. A black square sat high on the bookshelf in the drawing, a little box someone had remembered to include. Laura didn't register it as anything but a child's detail. She turned back to the kitchen. The blue mug sat upside down, ring faint but still there. The key rack's empty hook gleamed. Laura slid the chain onto the door. Go home, she told Ryan. Tomorrow. He hesitated, searching her face for permission he could later call fate. Text me if he tries anything. She nodded without promising. The door closed on him with a polite click. The apartment settled, the night quiet but crowded. Laura stood between the empty hook and the laptop Ethan had closed, and for the first time all day the weight of what she'd set in motion pressed evenly on both shoulders. She turned off the lamp. In the dark, the stainless still held a faint oval print where a lipstick had once insisted it belonged. Chapter 7. The Door Camera. Dark poured over the counters until the appliances were just shapes. The stainless still held its faint oval print, a stubborn pink ghost refusing to leave the blue mug's rim. The fridge hummed, a steady animal sleeping. Laura stood in the doorway, arms wrapped around herself, watching the key rack glow in the lamplight's afterimage. For quiet keys. One polished absence. A floorboard sighed down the hall. The guest room door opened on a soft wedge of gold. Ethan stepped out in a t-shirt and bare feet, moving with the care of someone not wanting to wake a child. He paused when he saw her. No surprise, just a small recalibration. Water, he said, almost an apology. She nodded and didn't move. The tap hissed, he filled a glass. In the silence, every tiny sound became a statement. Glass clink, swallow, the soft set down on the counter. He looked toward the living room, then to the door chain she'd slid across. His gaze flicked once to the key rack, as if checking the weather. Big day tomorrow, he offered, neutral. That's one word, she said. Her voice came out thinner than she meant. Spare keys still missing. His jaw tightened by a millimeter. You'll get everything you're owed, he said. It wasn't the answer to the question she'd asked. He took another drink and turned slightly, shoulders closing as if to keep whatever was inside from spilling. A small shuffle, then a cough. Sophie's. Her door creaked. She padded into the hall with sleep-warm cheeks, rabbit by one ear and a piece of paper clutched in the other hand. Hair stuck up like grass after rain. "Mommy?" she whispered, half a question, half a homing beacon. Laura crouched, opening her arms. Sophie walked straight into them and pressed her face against Laura's neck. Over her daughter's shoulder, Laura saw the paper, thick white, waxy crayon lines, their living room, from a child's low vantage. Couch in green, lamp in yellow, door in brown. And high on the drawn bookshelf, a tiny black square. "What's that?" Laura asked, keeping her tone light. "A mystery box?" Sophie pulled back, proud and conspiratorial. "The little square that watches the door," she said, like reporting a fact about the moon. "So Daddy knows when the parcel man comes." She tapped the square with a sticky finger. "I remembered it this time." Laura's skin cooled under her shirt. She looked from the drawing to the real bookshelf, tall, walnut, a line of spines like teeth. High on the top shelf, tucked between an engineering handbook and a cookbook they never used, something matte and dark sat back from the edge. It wasn't bigger than a matchbox. At this distance, it could have been anything. The way it made the air feel told her it wasn't. Ethan set the glass down as softly as you can set down a truth. "Soft," he said, warm. "Bed, kiddo." Sophie held the drawing out. "You keep," she said to Laura. "So you don't forget." Laura took it. The crayon had pressed hard enough to leave grooves. The black square was only a filled-in box, but it pulled the eye like a dropped pin on a map. "I won't," she said, and meant too many things. Ethan scooped Sophie up, and she hooked herself around his waist, sleepy and boneless, trusting gravity to turn into arms. Laura watched him carry their daughter back down the hall, the small bare feet swinging in rhythm with his steps. He paused at Sophie's doorway, checking the nightlight, smoothing the blanket. He kissed her hair the same way he had in the kitchen that morning. It did not look like theater. He came back, stopping in the living room where the drawing had sketched a little black square. His eyes took their time on the bookshelf without seeming to. When he looked at Laura, his face was careful. "Don't build a movie you can't live in," he said, quiet. "Be careful who scripts your story." The line landed heavier than it weighed. She wanted to hit him with 1,000 answers. Instead, she held up the drawing, tapping the square. "How long has that been there?" "It faces the door," he said. "Common area. Legal." He said the words like he'd practiced them in a mirror until they didn't shake. "Package theft. Break-ins on the floor." "Since when?" Her knuckles tightened on paper. "Long enough," he said. It wasn't evasive. It was precise in a way that made her angrier. She walked to the shelf. Up close, the little device shrank and sharpened. It was just a black cube with a pinhole lens, pushed back a finger's breadth behind the spines, wide enough to see the entry, the couch, the island. Her face hovered in the glass of a book jacket, warped and oil-slicked. The room sounds narrowed to the hum of the fridge and the small tick the cube made when it adjusted to light. Her phone buzzed on the counter. "Brian, don't let him bait you. Keep tomorrow clean." The message lit her face a cold blue in the dark window. In that reflection, for a dizzy second, she didn't look like herself. She looked like a character halfway through a scene she no longer controlled. Ethan reached past her, not close enough to touch, and straightened a fallen spine, hiding the cube a little more. The gesture was maddeningly domestic. "Get some sleep," he said. She didn't move. "Did you ever plan to tell me?" "I plan to protect the house," he said. "That includes you." A laugh escaped, brittle. "By filming me?" "By filming the door," he corrected softly. "And whatever walks through it." Silence swelled, thick and near. The drawing paper crackled in her grip. Laura slid the page under a magnet on the fridge where morning light would find it. Black square to the right, at eye level, impossible to miss. Ethan stepped back, as if from a ledge. "9," he said again, almost to the room. He turned toward the hall, then paused. "I won't fight you in front of her. The beat. Don't make me fight you in front of anyone else." He disappeared into the guest room. The apartment took his absence and flattened it. Laura stood alone with the hum and the square. The chain on the door glinted. On the key rack, 4 keys refused to answer for the missing 5th. She looked up at the top shelf, at the tiny black eye that had been watching this threshold longer than she knew, and felt the outline of the trap, hers, his, theirs, draw itself around the room. In the stillness, the camera gave one tiny mechanical click, like a throat clearing before the next scene. Chapter 8. The Recording. The little black cube gave a click like a throat clearing. Laura stood there until the hum of the fridge swallowed it, until the lights outside thinned from ink to milk. She didn't sleep. She showered on autopilot, dressed like she was costuming sanity, and packed evidence into a neat folder: lipstick photo, scarf photo, toothbrush photo, the charcoal rub 1206. The blue mug stared back from the counter, ring faint as a bruise. By 9, fluorescent light flattened everyone into paperwork. The mediation room smelled of carpet cleaner and stale coffee, blinds cut the morning into gray bars. The mediator, a woman with soft voice and steel habits, arranged 2 pens like crosshairs and asked for civility. Ethan sat straight, jaw shaved clean, a weathered calm around him that read not peace but prepared. Beside him, the woman in cream, Vanessa, had traded red heels for low black flats, a folder on her lap. Ryan took the chair angled behind Laura, forearm along the chair back, guard dog casual. "Let's be precise," the mediator said. "Mrs. Ward, you first." Laura slid her photos forward, her own pulse loud in her ears. "He lies about where he is," she said, voice steady by force. "He meets her in hotels. I followed him. I saw the loft. 2 toothbrushes. His cologne." She tapped each image, the scarf on the stool, the toothbrushes by the sink, the receipt with 1206 pressed up out of graphite like a verdict. "There are patterns." Ethan looked at each photo as if they were weather reports for someone else's city. "I hear that you feel deceived," he said, measured. "I'm not sleeping with anyone." Ryan made a soft sound that was almost a laugh. "Sure." Vanessa's gaze didn't shift. She was the kind of still that reads as patience. The mediator nodded. "Mr. Ward, do you have materials to share?" Ethan set a small digital recorder on the table as if placing down a teacup. "One thing," he said. He glanced at Laura, not unkindly. "Audio from our kitchen last night. The device faces the door in the common area. It captures the entryway. It captured sound." He met the mediator's eyes. "Legal, disclosed to my building, set up after package thefts. Time stamped." Ryan sat up straighter, jaw tightening. "You're recording her at home?" "The door," Ethan said again. "And whatever speaks loudly near it." He slid a printed notice copy toward the mediator, camera facing entry, common area only, boring, procedural, bulletproof. Laura felt the room tilt. Sophie's crayon black square flashed in her head. She heard her own voice from last night in memory, raw, tired, and close to that doorway. "I want a separation." She folded her hands to stop them rattling. Ethan pressed play. At first there was only room tone, fridge hum, a distant elevator cable whine, rain still chewing the gutter. Then, Ryan's voice, too loud for the mic, from the very island where he'd spread his legal pad. "He'll twist it. You went in first, looks like you planted. We get ahead, we make it about safety. We get the house and half the firm if he looks unstable." Laura's own voice, smaller, threaded through, "I hate this." Ryan again, calm and insistent. "You want your life back? Then we make it undeniable. Mediation, tomorrow. No more kitchen arguments. We make him squirm." A chair leg skated softly. Paper crackled, the legal pad. Laura heard herself exhale in a way that now sounded like surrender. Then Ryan once more lower, "Don't text him. Don't warn him. We need surprise." Ethan stopped the recording there. The tiny speaker throbbed once, then went still. The room's cheap clock ticked 5 times. Outside the blinds, someone rolled a cart down the corridor, wheels whispering like sand. The mediator set her pen down. "Thank you," she said carefully, face neutral because that was her job. She looked to Laura. "Do you dispute the authenticity of the recording?" Laura opened her mouth, closed it, felt heat crawl up her throat. "He's cherry-picking," she managed. I was overwhelmed. He was," She pointed her chin at Ryan without looking. We were strategizing because I thought, because I saw. Vanessa finally moved, just a fraction, head angled, as if catching a note off key. Ethan didn't look at her. He kept his attention on Laura, eyes tired and clear. I'm not asking you to be perfect, he said softly. I'm asking for truth. Ryan leaned in, voice clipped. 2 toothbrushes. A scarf. A hotel room. A woman. Are we pretending those don't exist? And a camera that doesn't blink, Ethan replied, not rising to the heat. He tapped the recorder once, an unconscious metronome. We can bring the raw file, the notice, the device. We can let the timeline talk. The mediator made a tiny mark on her pad. We'll take copies, she said. She glanced at Laura again. Do you have witnesses beyond Mr. Cole? Laura's mouth was dry. My neighbor, she said too fast. Detective Adnan. He pulled hallway footage. She heard herself say it and tasted the panic that had made her delete it. You can speak to the cameras. Maybe. Ryan's knee bounced. He stared at the recorder like he could will it to crack open and spill something generous. We'll bring more, he said. Receipts. Texts. The loft lease. Ethan sat back, quiet in a way that felt more dangerous than any speech. Let's put it all on the table, he said. Every clip. Every door that opened. The mediator gathered the papers. Then we reconvene after lunch with what each of you can produce. Her tone softened without losing shape. We will keep this about facts, and about your daughter. Vanessa stood, smoothing her blouse, the folders still closed. She moved to the door, then pivoted a degree, eyes on Laura, not gloating, not pitying, measuring distance like an engineer. See you at 2, she said. As they filed out, Laura felt the room expand around the empty chair she'd occupied, as if the air was relieved. In the corridor, the recessed camera blinked its small red bead, impassive and attentive. When the elevator opened, Ethan held the door without looking at her, and for a second the hum of cables sounded like a tape spooling back to the start. Laura stared at her reflection in the steel, face blanched, mouth set, and had the absurd urge to wipe a lipstick ring off the mirror with her sleeve. The doors slid shut on all of them, the click neat and gentle, the kind of sound that pretends it isn't final. Chapter 9, Evidence Doesn't Blink. The elevator hummed like a held breath. Metal doors parted on the lobby's bleach-bright noon. Paper cups scraped in a tray as a clerk tidied. Laura kept walking, folder tight against her ribs, Ryan matching pace, talking about leverage in a low, endless stream. Outside, heat lifted rain from the pavement in pale threads. Laura called, "Thun?" into her phone. The line picked up mid-footstep and hallway echo. You at work? She asked. On my way out, he said. You sound like someone who needs clean time. I need the Riverside hallway footage, she said. Not the clip. The block. The pause. Knew you'd ask for it back, he said, not unkind. I brought both spans. 2 to 4 p.m. yesterday. You can say you got them from the building manager. He cut the call before she could thank him. They met at the curb. Adnan's weekend jacket was darker at the shoulders. He pulled a small drive from a pocket and closed her fingers over it. Don't edit, he said. If you cherry-pick, you cut your own throat. Understood, Laura said, meaning it and not. Ryan tucked the drive into his jacket like a prize. This saves hours, he said. We'll run it in the room. Run it raw, Adnan said. His gaze didn't waver. Time is a character in your story. Let it speak. At 1:58 p.m., they re-entered the mediation suite's airless calm. The blinds made gray piano keys across the carpet. The mediator reset her 2 pens and a legal pad. Ethan was already seated, a slim folder to his right. Vanessa sat beside him, flats silent, face unreadable. Let's resume, the mediator said. Mrs. Ward, Mr. Ward, more materials? Ryan stood like counsel. Hallway CCTV. 2-hour block. Straight from the source. From the building manager, Laura added quickly. The lie felt brittle in her mouth. The mediator rolled a small monitor closer, plugging the drive with practiced disinterest. The screen bloomed into a fixed shot. Riverside Lofts, 12th floor, Cam B, timer in the corner counting the city's pulse in white digits. Laura's jaw tightened. The picture held steady. Hall, door 1206, the clean geometry of guilt and absolution. At 2 hours 3 minutes and 14 seconds, Ethan and Vanessa entered frame. Him with a briefcase and rolled plans, her with a folder. No hurry, no furtive glance, the ease of people who believe they are allowed. At 2 hours 11 minutes and 32 seconds, Laura watched herself slide into view, coat tight, hand in her purse for the missing twin of a key she didn't own. The small tilt of her head looked like someone deciding to be brave after the decision had been made. She turned the lock and went in. No one chased her. No one had to. The room's air thinned to paper. At 2 hours 20 minutes and 9 seconds, a delivery guy wrestled a dolly through the door, boxes labeled samples bumping like muffled drums. The red bead of the hallway dome blinked, blinked, blinked. At 2 hours 39 minutes and 47 seconds, Ryan appeared, cap low, a hand grazing the frame in an instinctive, useless attempt to fog the lens. He scanned both directions and slid into 1206 with the practiced impatience of a man who thinks cameras are for other people. No one spoke. The clock on the wall clicked once. "Continue," the mediator asked gently. Ethan nodded. "Please." At 3 hours 3 minutes and 12 seconds, a couple in scrubs crossed toward the elevator, laughing about a broken autoclave. At 3 hours 18 minutes and 50 seconds, a cleaner mopped an invisible line. At 3 hours 26 minutes and 5 seconds, Laura slipped back out of 1206, breath shallow even in pixels, head low, hands empty. The camera watched without opinion. Ryan's knee bounced faster. "Okay," he said too loud. "So they went in first. And you went in after," the mediator finished, neutral voice, pen still. "Plenty of reasons," Ryan said. "She was scared. I was helping," Vanessa suggested, mild, eyes on the screen. Laura couldn't make her throat work. She had asked for truth, now it arrived like weather. On the monitor, the hallway moved through its hour, Ethan and Vanessa exiting at 3:41, Ethan locking the door, Vanessa pointing to something on the wall and making a small note. Both of them walked away with the unhurried pace of people leaving work, not a secret. The mediator stopped the playback there and folded her hands. "Thank you," she said. "We'll keep the file with the record." Ethan slid his slim folder open and set 2 clean stacks on the table. Bank ledgers. Last 6 months. Pages of deposits and salary and rent lay there like the sleep of a boring person. No cash withdrawals above 200. No unaccounted transfers. "You're welcome to subpoena." Ryan snorted. "So you used a different account." "Or," Ethan said, not rising to him, "I didn't need one." He set a third document down, face up to the mediator. Riverside Lofts, Unit 1206 lease. Tenant of record, Unauthorized Studio LLC. Registered agent, Ryan Cole. He didn't look at Ryan when he said the name, he kept his gaze on the mediator, as if requesting the court, not the room. Something fragile in the air cracked. Ryan laughed once, thin, incredulous. "Anyone can list anyone." "State Corporate Registry," Ethan said, sliding the printout over. The top corner bore the timestamp from that morning. "Agent address matches your gym." The LLC formed 3 weeks before the lease, then amended to add an additional signatory, Laura Ward. Laura's head snapped up as if someone had cut a line. "What?" Ethan's eyes were steady. "Your signature isn't on the lease. It's on the bank authorization allowing Unauthorized to auto-debit our joint account for consulting space. You signed it at your hotel." He indicated a photocopy. There was her hand in blue ink, neat, betraying. The date stamp in the corner lined up with a night she'd told Ethan she was running an event late. Ryan's voice hardened. She didn't know what she was signing. "Then you did," Ethan said quietly. Silence swelled again, louder than any shout. Somewhere down the hall, a copier began to grind. Vanessa finally opened her folder, not a flourish, just a hinge, and slid a thin, plastic sleeve toward the mediator, who slipped it inside the case file without reading aloud. The mediator exhaled. "We'll need to verify registrations and signatures," she said, tone still a scalpel. But the surveillance is unambiguous as to sequence. Ryan leaned toward Laura. Stay with me, he breathed, too close to be comfort. He's spinning this. We'll explain. Laura's eyes were on the paused monitor. There she was at 2:11, opening a door with a key that wasn't hers, chasing a story she had already decided was true. There was Ryan at 2:39, sliding behind the same door. She could almost hear the soft scrape of his sleeve against the frame. Mrs. Ward, the mediator said, do you have anything further before we break again? Laura wet her lips. The hotel, she managed. Suite 1206. We walked in on them. Work or not? The number. It's a conference suite, Ethan said, tone without heat. You can call the hotel manager. He laid down a business card the manager had given him years ago. Or you can check metadata on your photos. The lipstick ring was taken after I left the house. He glanced once at the blue mug in her memory. The light on the countertop in your picture is afternoon. We both drank coffee in the morning. Vanessa was already on her phone. I'll request the EXIF analysis and credentials, she murmured to the mediator. She wasn't grandstanding, she was filing. We can finish the chain after a brief recess. The mediator nodded. 10 minutes, she said. Then we address custody and temporary occupancy. Everyone rose at once. Chair legs rasped like matches. The monitor still held the frozen frame of Laura's hand on 12:06, the camera's faithless timestamp burning white in the corner. In the corridor, the recessed lens blinked its small red, steady as a pulse. Ryan touched Laura's elbow. She pulled away without deciding to. Across from them, Ethan stood with his folder at his side, staring at nothing, as if he'd given his story to the clock and was waiting to see if time would keep it. 10 minutes, the mediator repeated from the doorway. The hallway felt suddenly longer than it had any right to be. Chapter 10. The Full Twist. The hallway felt longer than it should, carpet swallowing footsteps, recessed cameras blinking their small red pulse. 10 minutes stretched thin, then snapped. The mediator opened the door with the same neutral hand she used for pens. Back in, she said. Fluorescence flattened color. The blinds cut gray bars across the table. Laura sat, folder under her palm like a shield. Ryan angled behind her again, a wall in a suit. Ethan took his chair without scrape. Vanessa set her closed folder down and laced her fingers, the calm of someone who had rehearsed the scene and didn't need the script. Resume, the mediator said. Vanessa broke the quiet first, standing, not theatrical, just upright. Before we chase receipts in circles, she said, voice even, we should correct a premise. She reached into her bag and produced a slim trifold wallet. The click of the snap sounded louder than it was. Inside, a plastic card. Photo, seal, numbers. She laid it on the table, not toward Laura, not toward Ryan, toward the mediator. Vanessa Hale. State-licensed private investigator. License number ending 817. A second page followed, printed on letterhead, signature crisp. Retainer agreement. Client, Ethan Ward. Date, 5 months ago. She indicated a string of invoices, dates, case codes, paid in check. Scope, marital fraud, financial exposure, third-party collusion. Ryan made a sound like a laugh missing its footing. Nice prop. The mediator didn't smile. She read both, then picked up the license and compared its hologram to a reference sheet in a drawer. The little square caught light and flared, real. She nodded once, clipped. Admitted. Vanessa's folder opened with a soft paper sigh. Chain of custody, she continued. Audio device, entryway, common area only, installed after package thefts. Notice posted. She tapped the copy Ethan had already provided. CCTV acquisitions via building requests, logged. No edits. Stored with checksums. No triumph in her tone, just a ledger. Laura's fingernails pressed crescents into the manila. You've been pretending to be, her mouth stalled on the word. Visible, Vanessa said. Not pretending to be your husband's lover. She finally looked at Laura. Pretending to be someone you would notice. Red heels work better than beige flats when you want the other party to bring a camera. The faintest of smiles, Not cruel, just technical. You obliged. The room shrank to the area between Laura's ribs. She heard the click of the coffee machine out in the admin alcove like a metronome counting down the version of her that had believed the lipstick ring. Vanessa placed a sheet down, a retail POS receipt from the boutique inside Laura's hotel, a scarf brand and color circled, employee code flagged, LB032. The date was 2 days before the loft photos. Purchased with staff discount under your login, Vanessa said, matter of fact. We obtained this with consent from hotel management. Ms. Patel corroborated that you asked for a wine shade scarf for staging. Laura felt heat climb her neck. Nadia wouldn't. She did after counsel explained exposure, Vanessa said, still without malice. Next, the mug. She slid a print of metadata analysis, EXIF blocks neat as tiny cities. Photo taken at 14:12 yesterday. Color temperature matches late light through your west window. Mr. Ward left the apartment at 7:58, captured by the building camera and the door audio. She almost shrugged. Lipstick didn't appear on a mug he drank from at dawn. Ryan leaned in, a tremor under his skin he tried to turn into posture. So you moved a timetable. So what? 2 toothbrushes. A loft. Alone with her. Vanessa turned a page. Loft lease, Wellrise Studio LLC. Registered agent, Ryan Cole. Amended banking authorities signed by Laura Ward. The papers barked down a cadence as she laid them, registry printout, bank authorization copy, timestamp headers aligned. Unit used as a staging site for both business and personal meetings. Including yours. Ryan's jaw set. Watch yourself. Ethan's voice came quiet but edged. Watch her, he said, looking at the mediator, not at Ryan. We both know which one of us knew what that signature meant. The mediator lifted a hand, a traffic cop for the soul. Ms. Hale, anything further? One more, Vanessa said. She clicked the recorder Ethan had brought, a second file. Grain filled the cheap speaker, then a room. A different air, the thin carpet hush of a motel, not their kitchen. Laura heard her own voice echo in a place she'd never wanted to hear herself. We make it look like he's seeing her. We'll get the house. He's too careful to explode in public. Ryan's voice, softer, coaching. You don't need him to explode. You need him to look like he could. Trust me. The file ended with a door chain clink and a low laugh that didn't sound like anyone she wanted to be. No one moved. Even the blinds seemed to hold their breath in the AC. Ethan rubbed his thumb over the edge of a page, a small human gesture in a room turning into procedure. When he spoke, his voice was tired enough to be believed. I didn't want this, he said to Laura, and for a second there were only 2 of them and a girl drawing boxes high on a bookshelf. I wanted the facts in a place where shouting couldn't drown them. Laura stared at the investigator's license, the embossed seal winking like an eye that had always been open. The red heels marched backward through her memory, elevator light, hallway laugh, a hand on a sleeve. The performance, yes. But not his. Hers. Ryan shifted, pressing forward into the silence. He's spinning you, he told the mediator. PIs lie for a living. He's rich. I'm not rich, Ethan said. I'm done. He slid the final stack across. Custody proposal, visitation schedule, temporary occupancy for Laura and Sophie, financials transparent to the decimal. It looked like a man stepping out of a burning building with only what he could carry. I'm not here to win. I'm here to stop losing. The mediator's pen hovered, then touched paper. The court appreciates clarity, she said. She looked at Laura. Mrs. Ward. Laura felt everything at once, shame like heat, grief like cold, a thin, cutting relief through both, because the thing you name stops ruling you by rumor. She tried to assemble a sentence out of wreckage and found only a breath. Vanessa closed her folder, the click almost kind. I'll file chain logs this afternoon, she told the mediator, then sat, hands folded, workmanlike. The red heels from yesterday waited in some other hallway, retired from this room's narrative. Outside, a copy machine started up and stuttered, paper slapping into a tray like a heartbeat finally catching its rhythm. Inside, What passed for truth stood on the table in paper stacks and tiny holograms. The shape of the story turned, slow and inevitable, like a building rotating to face the river. Nobody clapped. No one was supposed to. Chapter 11. Everything breaks, then clarifies. No one clapped. Paper settled. The room felt like an emptied stage, props still warm, actors out of breath. A knock, 2 brisk taps, cut the flat air. The mediator glanced up. "We're occupied." The door opened anyway. A woman stepped in with the kind of calm you wear when you've cried in a car and decided to stop. Late 20s, a soft maternity dress under a raincoat, hand resting on a rounded belly. Behind her, a man in a charcoal suit, her lawyer, hovered with a slim folder. "Emily Cole," she said, eyes going straight to Ryan. "You stopped answering." Ryan's posture flickered. Not now." She smiled without humor. "Now." She handed a single sheet to the mediator. Notice of arrears for Wellrise Studio LLC. 3 months behind. And a personal guarantee. She didn't look at Ryan, signed by him. Ryan's throat moved. "We're restructuring." Emily turned the sheet so Laura could see a scribbled signature block. Guarantor, Ryan Cole. The date overlapped the week he told Laura he'd float the lease until the sponsorship hits. Emily's voice didn't rise. "I thought we were saving for a crib. You were saving for a set." The mediator started to speak, jurisdiction, process, but Emily's lawyer quietly placed a second page, an email printout. Ryan to a vendor. "Need the loft staged by Friday? Client prefers 2 toothbrushes. Make it domestic." Vanessa's eyes ticked over it, then returned to stillness. Ryan's hands opened and closed. "It's out of context." "Everything is until it isn't," Emily said. She inhaled, steadying. "I didn't come to plead. I came to say I'm not paying for your costume department while I choose a pediatrician." Her gaze shifted to Laura, softer without being forgiving. "I'm sorry you were part of this." Heat crawled under Laura's skin. "I chose it," she said, voice scraped thin. "He just offered the script." Ryan reached for Laura's arm. She pulled back as if from a radiator. The room caught the motion and held it in its teeth. Ethan spoke for the first time since the twist landed. "Enough," he said quietly. He slid a signed page toward the mediator. "I'm agreeing to temporary occupancy for Laura and Sophie, full transparency on finances, and a 50-50 custody schedule with school-first rules. No disparagement in front of our daughter." He folded his hands, empty now. "We can't keep burning oxygen." The mediator's pen returned to its clean, professional cadence. "Acknowledged. We'll enter it as a temporary order pending final review." Ryan barked out a laugh that went nowhere. "Congratulations," he said to Ethan. "You win the nice guy trophy." Ethan didn't bite. He looked at Laura, just looked, and there was fatigue there, and something like grief, and something like release. "I'm done bleeding for your story," he said, not cruel, not triumphant. Laura's fingers tightened around the edge of her folder until it hurt. She wanted to say 100 things and none of them would fix the geometry of the last week. "You could have told me," she managed. "About her. About any of it." "I did," he said softly. "You just heard it as something else." Silence. The blinds shifted with the AC, casting bars that moved across everyone's faces like slow prison. Emily cleared her throat. "I'm leaving," she told Ryan. "The lawyer will email you about support." She placed a small, folded onesie on the table, blue, with a cartoon whale. A stupid, devastating object. "You don't have to show up for me," she said. "But I hope you show up for him." She touched her belly, then turned and left, her lawyer a quiet shadow behind her. The door clicked. The room needed a second to remember how to breathe. Vanessa stood, gathering her documents with the elegance of a dancer replacing props. "Chain logs will be filed by 5, she told the mediator. To Ethan, she added a simple, "I'll email you a clean archive." No wink. No flourish. She left a business card on the table and crossed the room in silent flats, the ghost of red heels in her wake. The mediator closed her folder. "We'll draft the interim order now," she said. "Mr. Ward, Mrs. Ward, The clerk will call you in 5 minutes to sign. Please don't speak to each other in the lobby. The administrative kindness of it landed like a blanket. They filed into the corridor. The recessed camera blinked its. Ryan leaned on the opposite wall, head tipped back, eyes closed as if the ceiling might grant an alibi. He opened them when Laura stepped past. "We can fix this," he whispered. "We spin it. We say nothing," Laura said. It was the first sentence all day that felt like hers. "Go home, Ryan." She didn't look to see if he obeyed. Ethan waited near the elevator with his folder. No stance of victory. Just absence where weight had been. The doors slid open with a low chime. They entered on opposite sides, the way strangers do. In the mirror steel, Laura caught their two faces. One drawn, one emptied, and the smallest square of a crayon black box flashed in her mind. The little eye that had watched the door while they performed. At the ground floor, the elevator let them out into the neutral lobby hush. The clerk didn't look up. Outside, afternoon sun had burned the rain off the city. Everything shone like a fresh lie. Ethan shifted his folder under one arm. "I'll come by later," he said, practical. "Bring the spare key. Pack a few things." 7. The word key landed like a pebble dropped down a well. Laura nodded once. 7. He hesitated, then added, "Tell Soph I'll take her Saturday to the Science Museum. We'll make the bridge model." His mouth twitched at the corner. The ghost of a smile that knew where they kept the glue. Laura swallowed. "She'll like that." They parted at the revolving door. Ethan stepped into his slice of glass and pushed. For a moment, as he turned, his reflection overlapped hers, two people superimposed by a machine that didn't care, and then the panes separated and he was outside, small in the bright day. Ryan called her name from behind, a stranded sound. She kept walking. The clerk's pen scratched. The camera blinked. The world did what it always does after truth. It kept going. On the sidewalk, Laura stopped and closed her eyes to the heat, to the traffic breathing. When she opened them, a bus rolled past with an ad for Harborview, conference level, state of the art. She almost laughed. Her phone buzzed. A text from Ethan, 7 o'clock. "I'll knock." Another from an unknown number, "Ms. Ward, this is Vanessa. You'll receive a download link shortly. Keep a copy somewhere he can't access. For your sake, not mine." Laura typed thank you and didn't send it. She put the phone away and looked at her hands. They were steady. For the first time in days, the tremor had nowhere left to hide. She headed home, rehearsing the shape of the evening in her mouth. The door chain sliding back, Sophie's shoes by the mat, a spare key placed on wood like an ending you could touch. And underneath it all, a question she hadn't earned an answer to yet, whispering in the draft. When the key is on the table, who is the lock for? Chapter 12. The Last Spare Key. Laura walked home through heat that made the crosswalk paint shine. The city smelled like sun on wet stone. In her bag, the folder pressed against her ribs the way a child leans when it's tired. Upstairs, the apartment greeted her with lemon and the low purr of the AC. Sophie's shoes sat side by the mat, small, honest. She unlocked the chain, then slid it back into place, as if muscle memory could make decisions for her. The blue mug waited on the counter, rim clean now. She'd scrubbed it until only the shape of the memory remained. On the fridge, Sophie's drawing held its corner under a fruit magnet. The little black square on the shelf stared from crayon. Laura stood on a chair, reached to the top shelf, and found the device by touch, matte, cool, weightless as a lie. She set it on the island, lens to the ceiling. The room got quieter by a degree no instrument could measure. She didn't smash it. She didn't hide it. She left it there like a witness off duty. At 6:41 the sun dropped behind a neighboring building and turned the living room brass. Laura cut fruit. Steam rose from a pot of pasta, garlic sweetening the air, trying to stitch a circle back to a night that now felt like another couple's prequel. In the hall, Sophie narrated a doll's hospital in whispers. "Breathe in," she told the rabbit. "Bridge goes here." At 6:58, the elevator thunked on their floor. Laura wiped her hands. The knock at 7 was polite, the kind you use on a door you helped hang. She opened to Ethan, a duffel on his shoulder, a banker's box under one arm. He looked like absence in human clothes, lighter and older at once. He paused at the chain and she slid it back. Metal brushed metal with a faint chime. "Hey," he said. "Hey." Sophie's feet pattered. "Daddy." She hit his leg at speed, then sprang back to look. "Are we making a bridge on Saturday?" "We are," he said, crouching. "We'll see how heavy a gummy bear can be before the deck sags." He made his fingers into a bridge that bounced. She laughed and built a car out of air to drive over it. He kissed the top of her head and stood. He put the box on the table, then reached into his pocket and drew out the spare key, the long, matte one with the blue bead. It flashed once in the warm light, brighter than it had any right to. He placed it on the wood, carefully as if it could bruise. The sound was small, decisive. Laura didn't touch it. Ethan glanced to the island and saw the camera. Something unodded in his face. "Good," he said, not pressing it further. He set his duffel by the door and crossed to the shelf, taking an engineering handbook and a framed photo, Sophie in a paper crown, both of them grinning like they'd invented sun. He hesitated with the frame in his hands. "You keep," he said, and put it back where it had always lived. They moved in a choreography they hadn't practiced but knew: open drawers, close them, choose the essentials and leave the story. Socks, a sweater, a set of wrenches, a passport, a toothbrush, the charcoal one. No fighting over bowls or grief. The apartment listened, memorizing without opinion. "Your mother's coming by next week," Ethan said at one point, as if saying whether. "I told her it should be just the three of us for a while." Laura nodded. "It should." They signed the temporary order at the coffee table, two signatures that looked like echoes of themselves. Sophie brought over stickers to make it official, and the mediator's language bloomed with stars and smiley faces around no disparagement and alternate weekends. "Do you want dinner?" Laura asked, because she couldn't think of a better verb. He shook his head, soft. "I should go before it gets weird." They walked to the door. The keys sat on the table like an eye. Ethan picked up the duffel. He looked at the room the way you look at a place you once knew in the dark. "Text me if you need anything," he said. "Or don't. Saturday at 10. 10, she echoed. He bent, kissed Sophie's hair again. "Bridge," he reminded, and she saluted with the rabbit's ear. He straightened and waited, giving Laura the chance to say something that would undo or redo or pause the world. She didn't. There are sentences that only live in the throat. He stepped into the hall. She closed the door until the latch met the strike plate with a sound she'd always liked, a clean, competent click. The sound changed shape as it settled in the new room that was her life. For a long moment she stood motionless. Sophie tugged her sleeve. "Can we eat?" she asked. They ate at the table. The pasta steamed, garlic warm in the air. Sophie told a story about a rabbit hospital where all the patients got better, some faster than others. Laura listened and did not cry. When they finished, she washed the 2 plates and 1 little bowl, set them in the rack, and wiped the counter until it felt like hers again. She lifted the spare key. It was heavier than a symbol, lighter than a promise. She put it on the hook where it had always belonged. The small brass mouth looked complete. The room took a breath. On the fridge, Sophie's drawing watched them. A couch the right wrong green, a lamp too yellow, a black square on a shelf that was already empty. Laura took the drawing down and straightened it, smoothing the grooves the crayon had left. She stuck it back at a truer angle. Before bed, she picked up the camera from the island, pressed a fingertip to the lens until her print fogged there, then dropped it into the drawer with the spare batteries and rubber bands. Not hidden. Not watching. The apartment settled, pipes ticking, the building sighing, the last heat of the day exiting through glass. Laura stood in the doorway between kitchen and hall, feeling the shape of the quiet. In the other room, Sophie hummed, tiny and off-key, then fell into sleep with the abruptness of children who trust doors. Laura turned off the lamp. In the dim, the key caught the last line of light and threw it back, thin as a thread, long as a future. She found herself smiling without meaning to, a tired, honest curve. Across town, an elevator climbed, stopped, opened. Somewhere, a woman in flats filed chain logs. Somewhere, a man put a frame in a new room and made a space for a toothbrush. The city kept moving in its thousands of simple, complicated ways. In the dark kitchen, the only thing that moved was the clock. It ticked forward once. The key didn't speak. It didn't have to.